Essentially, when we think about who we are, like our identity or profound sense of self, there's this unconscious expectation of solid boundaries.
Well, absolutely. Impenetrable boundaries.
Right. We think of ourselves like architecture almost. You have your physical skin, your private thoughts, your personal bubble.
Like a fortress.
Exactly, like your house.
Yeah.
And the front door is just deadbolted, and the rest of the vast world is definitively outside.
It is an incredibly comforting illusion, honestly. We really crave that
Yeah.
containment.
Yeah, we want the universe categorized neatly into me versus not me.
It provides a sense of control,
Yeah.
especially in a totally chaotic environment.
It's clean. You know exactly where your front porch ends and where the cosmic sidewalk begins.
Right.
But then you step into this deep dive today, and you start looking seriously at the psychology of human connection.
And quantum mechanics.
Yes. And suddenly that dead-bolted front door doesn't really exist.
None at all.
The thick brick walls of the house start to look a lot more like a permeable screen door. And eventually, like no door at all.
We basically find ourselves looking at an existential landscape that is completely fluid.
Which is exactly the paradigm shift we are exploring today. Welcome, you guys, to a brand new deep dive.
It's a big one today.
Huge! We are looking at some seriously visionary source material. Specifically, we're diving into the second chapter of a book called A Big Log by Radio-MANNADORO.
It is a fiercely dense philosophical text.
Oh, it really is. And the mission here is massive. We are going to try to completely rewire how you perceive your own mind.
And fundamentally change your relationship with the actual space around you.
Yeah, because the journey this text outlines is nothing short of a radical untangling of the modern psyche.
We're going to move from that restrictive feeling of being an isolated, disconnected individual.
That solitary house with the locked door.
Exactly. We're moving from that to the realization that you are actually a vibrating, hyper-powerful node in a living cosmic network.
And we aren't just going to be throwing around abstract physics here, right?
No, not just floating in high-minded philosophical clouds.
We are heading toward an ultimate destination that feels intensely personal.
We're going to explore how the seemingly empty space around you, the field, might actually be a living, feeling cosmic witness.
A cosmic witness to your everyday life. I mean, we're talking about how you interact with a difficult coworker.
Or how you navigate a screaming match with a family member.
Or even what it actually means when you are just sitting alone in a silent room.
But to get there, the text kind of has to take a sledgehammer to what it calls the modern isolated subject.
Yeah, let's start there, because for centuries, particularly in the West, we've been culturally conditioned to think of ourselves as these monolithic rational centers.
Right, the classic Cartesian view. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am.
Which basically built a giant moat around the human mind.
It established this really rigid binary, like I am in here, safe in my skull, and the world is out there.
Just a separate machine that I observe.
The individual as a fortified island. But the author of A Big Log argues quite forcefully that this model is intellectually and spiritually bankrupt.
Wow. Bankrupt.
It simply cannot hold up to the staggering complexity of the modern world. I mean, when we conceptualize ourselves as isolated blocks, we're forced to rely on binary logic.
True or false? Us or them?
1 or 0. Good or evil.
Which, feels safe. But it's incredibly brittle.
Extremely brittle.
If you try to navigate a deeply interconnected, globalized, emotionally labyrinthine world using only us versus them programming,
the system inevitably crashes.
Right. You get endless polarization. You get systemic conflict.
And on a personal level, you get a profound, aching sense of alienation.
Because if you are just a block and everyone else is a block, all you can really do is collide.
The friction just becomes unbearable.
Yeah.
So the text suggests we must transition to what it calls entangled subjectivity.
Entangled subjectivity. Okay, so how do we conceptualize that massive leap?
Well, the book introduces its foundational archetype, the wave.
Ah, the wave.
It asserts that reality and identity are not rigid forms that separate us, but living, pulsating totalities in constant transformation.
The wave is just such a perfect symbol for this, because it overcomes that rigid dualism we were just talking about.
Totally.
Like, think of the crest and the trough of a wave. In binary, block-based logic, up and down are opposites at war.
Right, one has to defeat the other.
But in wave logic, the crest and the trough are not enemies. They are complementary phases of the exact same movement.
You physically cannot have a wave without both.
Yeah, they're a continuous dance of polarities.
And Humanity has understood the waves as a primary force long before quantum physics ever mapped it
Oh,
mathematically.
for sure.
If you look at the ocean, or the propagation of sound, or just simply observe your own breath.
Inhale and exhale.
Exactly. The wave is a pre-linguistic symbol of existence. It proves that continuity and change can happen at the exact same time.
I was trying to visualize this transition from the old logic to the new while I was reading, and the analogy that kept coming to mind is a bucket of marbles.
Yo, bucket of marbles. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, so the old view of humanity, that isolated subject, is the bucket of marbles. You have all these distinct, hard, impenetrable little spheres.
Right?
They can bump into each other. They can sit perfectly next to each other in a jar.
They might even crack each other if they are thrown together hard enough.
Exactly, but they remain completely separate. The glass of one marble never, ever mixes with the glass of another.
The boundary is absolute.
But the new view, this entangled subjectivity the book talks about, is like drops of water falling into a still pond.
Oh, wow.
The moment the drop hits the surface, it ceases to be a sphere and becomes a ripple, a wave.
And as multiple drops hit the pond simultaneously, those ripples expand and move right through each other.
Every single ripple interacts with every other ripple in the pond.
They don't crash like marbles and bounce off.
No, they pass right through, altering each other's frequency. They create completely new interference patterns.
Which perfectly illustrates the core mechanism the text relies on, which is quantum coherence.
Quantum coherence, can you break that down a bit?
Yeah, so in the realm of quantum physics, coherence describes a state where distinct, theoretically separate entities, like subatomic particles, begin to behave as if they are a single, unified system.
They lose their individual boundaries.
Exactly. They act in concert. And the truly paradigm-shattering part is that they do this regardless of physical distance.
Right, this is where our marble-based logic completely shorts out.
Totally shorts out.
Two entangled particles can be light years apart, like on opposite ends of the galaxy. But if you measure the state of one, the other instantly correlates.
They aren't communicating by sending a tiny radio signal across space either.
Because that would be limited by the speed of light, right?
Exactly. They're relying on an underlying informational resonance. They are connected at a layer of reality that precedes physical space.
That is just wild to think about.
And the text argues that this phenomenon isn't just a bizarre quirk isolated to subatomic particles in a laboratory.
Right. It proposes that this non-local logic is the underlying architecture of all reality, including human consciousness. So instead of thinking of ourselves in terms of our physical boundaries, like where my skin ends and the chair begins, we should be defining ourselves strictly by our relationships.
By our relationships and our resonances, yes.
But I have to push back here a little bit, because honestly, this sounds terrifying to the modern ego.
Oh, absolutely does.
If we abandon our solid boundaries, if we give up binary logic and embrace this totally fluid identity where we are all just intersecting ripples in a pond,
Yeah.
don't we risk losing our sense of self entirely? I mean, how do you keep from just dissolving into the cosmic background noise?
Right.
If I'm just a wave passing through other waves, where exactly is me?
The fear of dissolution is basically the ego's first, loudest defense mechanism against entangled thought.
It's panicking.
It is. But a big log anticipates this panic. It
Yeah.
explicitly states that fluid identity does not negate multiplicity. It doesn't mean we all melt into a giant homogeneous gray puddle of sameness. Instead of dissolving, we become what the text defines as a node.
A node. So a localized point of intense focus within the broader wave pattern.
Think of it as an intersection point. In the classical paradigm, your identity is defined by your borders.
By what you forcefully exclude.
Right. I am not that person. I am not that ideology. I'm not that table.
Yeah.
But in the quantum vibrational paradigm, your identity is defined by your frequency, by your coherence.
Okay, I think I'm following.
You are an intersection of millions of waves, memories, cultural influences, and personal experiences.
So identity isn't a brick wall I build around myself to keep the world out. It's like the highly specific, incredibly complex song I'm singing.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And that song emerges from the field rather than being a closed-off nucleus hiding from it.
Wow.
Being yourself doesn't mean excluding other possibilities. It means holding all those intersecting waves in a uniquely resonant state.
You are a point of conscious intensity.
You are a unique tuning of the universal instrument.
Let's follow that thread into the actual architecture of this connection, because the text lays out a very specific structure.
It does. It calls this overarching structure la rite. the network.
And it is hyper-vigilant about distinguishing this from a digital network, right?
Very much so. We aren't talking about the internet or social media or a web of fiber optic cables.
Far from it. This is an archetypal living matrix.
The text uses the concept of a quantum loom.
A loom, like for weaving.
Exactly. If you think about how a loom works, you have the strong longitudinal threads held in tension,
Right.
and the weft, which are the threads woven through them to create the fabric. In this framework, consciousness and thought are the actual weaving process.
That's beautiful. The tension of our relationships holds the universe together.
And our active choices weave the pattern of reality.
And within that massive quantum loom, you have the nodes, which we just established, are us, these points of conscious intensity.
Yeah.
And connecting those nodes, you have the bonds, or illigame.
Yes. And the definition of the bond here is really revolutionary.
How so?
Well, in a digital network, a bond is just a passive wire. It just shuttles data from point A to point B.
The wire itself doesn't care what the data is.
Exactly. But in this living network, a bond is an active vibration between two poles. It's a dynamic, highly charged space of exchange where meaning is constantly being generated.
So when two human nodes connect, they don't just pass static information back and forth.
No, the bond mutually transforms both of them.
Okay, so how does this actually look for you, the listener, in the trenches of your everyday life?
Right, practically speaking.
Yeah, if you are a conscious node operating within this quantum loom, how do you navigate like a Tuesday morning at the office based on this ethics of unity?
Well, the text brings up empathy,
Ah,
and it completely strips away our Hallmark card definition of it.
we usually think of empathy as a psychological projection, right? Like,
Yeah.
I imagine what you are feeling and therefore I feel a shadow of it.
But the text says that's barely scratching the surface.
Real.
Yeah. When you understand someone before they even finish their sentence, or when you sense your partner's deep sadness the exact second you unlock the front door,
Yeah, we've all felt that.
that is literal human quantum coherence.
Wait. So this isn't just a poetic metaphor. The text is actually arguing that our consciousness is physically, or at least physically adjacent, entangling with their energy.
It is a literal resonance between two conscious fields. The text posits that at a fundamental layer, your informational frequency is synchronizing with theirs.
Oh, wow.
It's the living, breathing manifestation of that non-local logic we discussed. You aren't two separate marble blocks trying to decode each other's facial expressions.
Right.
You are, for that agonizing or beautiful moment, behaving as a single, unified system.
That dramatically raises the stakes of empathy. Like, it's not just, I feel bad for you. It's, my fundamental wave structure is currently synchronizing with yours.
Exactly. And that completely reframes how we handle basic conversations.
The text advocates heavily for active listening over judging, right?
It does. It says that acting ethically means actively generating harmony in the network, rather than dissonance.
If we look at the old binary morality, it's entirely focused on categorization, separating the righteous from the wicked, the correct from the incorrect.
But the ethics of unity asks an entirely different, much more pragmatic question.
Which is?
Does this specific action, this specific sentence, strengthen or weaken the living network?
I love how I phrase that in my head. It replaces moral judgment with acoustic tuning.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Acoustic tuning. When you interact with a cashier, a spouse, or a stranger on the internet, you are acting as an antenna.
You receive their signal, you modulate it within your own internal architecture, and you transmit a response.
And if your response is immediate, harsh, binary judgment, you are generating static.
You are sending a dissonant shockwave that disrupts the coherence of the local field.
But if your response is grounded in deep, spacious listening, you are generating harmony. You are actively tuning the bond.
There is a concept here that completely threw me, though.
Oh, what was that?
It's how the text addresses the idea of wearing masks.
Ah, yes.
Because in modern pop psychology, wearing a mask, like your polite professional persona or the brave face you put on for your kids, is treated like a betrayal of the self.
Right. The goal is always to take off the mask and reveal your one true, authentic face.
Exactly. But this entangled paradigm actually defends the mask. If I'm reading this correctly, it says the mask isn't inherently fake.
It isn't fake at all, provided it is used with awareness.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, if we remember that identity is not a solitary, fixed rock, but a polyphony, a complex chorus of different frequencies and potentials,
Yeah.
then a mask is simply a conscious channel. It is a specific modulation of the self designed to interface with a specific part of the network.
So the hyper-competent, unemotional work me and the incredibly goofy, vulnerable, hanging out with my best friend me are both entirely real.
Yes.
One isn't a lie covering up the other.
They are both legitimate expressions of your node. The danger only arises when the ego fuses with the mask.
Ah, when you forget you are wearing it.
Right, and you confuse that highly specific professional role with your deepest infinite essence.
But used consciously, it's just a tool.
A necessary tool
Ah.
for interacting with different frequencies without being overwhelmed. It is a highly sophisticated dance between boundary definition and infinite openness.
What this all boils down to is a terrifyingly beautiful concept of radical responsibility.
Radical responsibility, yes.
If you truly accept that you are a conscious node, then every single action, every muttered word, every private unexpressed thought is a vibration.
A vibration that ripples outward through the entire network.
There are zero isolated actions.
None. You are constantly acting as a living transducer between the visible, physical world and the invisible energetic dimensions of human connection.
Which really forces us to redefine humility, doesn't it?
Completely. Humility is no longer about making yourself small or bowing down or submitting to a higher authority.
Humility is simply the profound, bone-deep recognition of your absolute interdependency.
It's walking into a room and knowing you are a node among nodes and that the center of the network is everywhere, in everyone.
Okay, I have a major real-world pushback for you on this, though.
I'll bring it on.
The text categorizes these bonds into 3 types: harmonic, dissonant, and transformative.
Right.
It claims a bond can strengthen the unity of the field, or it can destabilize it to generate a new level of complexity.
Yes, that's the transformative part.
But let's say I'm dealing with someone who is just fundamentally toxic, like an abuser, a manipulator, or just a deeply destructive colleague.
Okay.
If I'm supposed to be this enlightened, conscious node practicing the ethics of unity, does that mean I just have to sit there, take their abuse, and absorb their radioactive vibrations just to maintain the connection to the network?
That is the most common and vital concern when people first encounter non-dual or entangled philosophies.
It's a real fear.
And the text provides a resounding no. A healthy network requires fierce, discerning maintenance.
Oh, thank goodness.
The text explicitly states that you are responsible for caring for the bonds. And sometimes, the quality of a bond is so aggressively dissonant that it fundamentally damages the receiving node.
So, we aren't called to be quantum martyrs.
Absolutely not. The network is an organism. It is not about forcing destructive parasitic connections.
So what do you do?
Sometimes threads must be consciously released, or in many cases, they simply snap under the agonizing pressure of intense dissonance.
Wow.
And that brutal reality introduces one of the most profound, heavy concepts in the entire text.
What actually happens when the network breaks?
Exactly, which brings us to the exploration of trauma.
Yeah, trauma. In the classic isolated subject model of psychology, trauma is usually viewed as a discrete, terrible event that happened to us in the past.
Right, like a bad file stored on the hard drive of the brain, causing pain when it's accessed.
But in the entangled paradigm, trauma is not just a bad memory. It is a literal structural interruption of the network.
It is a violent break in the vibratory continuity of the field.
It is a snapped thread on the quantum loom.
When a massive trauma occurs, whether it's violence, deep betrayal, or systemic oppression, the specific node experiencing it is abruptly isolated.
The text describes how the sheer force of the trauma causes the node to retract in on itself, like a sea anemone touched by something sharp.
It completely loses its capacity for resonance.
Think about the physical and emotional reality of someone going through something horrific. What do?
They pull back.
They isolate. They develop a pervasive feeling that absolutely nobody can understand them, that they are completely alone in the universe.
And that forced isolation produces a deafening internal silence. It produces immense vibratory distortion.
And it generates a profound, tragic misunderstanding between the traumatized node and the rest of the living network.
The life force, the informational energy, simply cannot flow through that point anymore. The current gets blocked, and the energy pools and stagnates.
And the text makes a massive point that this blockage isn't just in the mind, right? It's heavily, permanently archived in the physical body.
Oh, yes. The body holds the unspoken memories. It holds the unexpressed terror, the crystallized muscular tensions.
The physical body is the tangible node where the trauma is inscribed.
But the text expands this outward in a way that is incredibly sobering.
Because we are all nodes in a deeply shared network.
Exactly. So trauma doesn't just exhaust itself in the individual psyche of a single person. It transmits.
Generational and collective trauma.
Precisely. Let's trace a hypothetical thread to see how this works mechanically. Imagine a grandfather who survives a famine or a war.
Okay.
The trauma snaps his connection. His node retracts. He survives, but he carries a vibration of hypervigilance, a profound mistrust of the world.
And he doesn't have the tools to tune it.
Right. So that frequency of silence and fear is passed down the network to his child. The child grows up bathed in that distorted resonance, internalizing a sense of scarcity without ever experiencing a famine themselves.
And then that child has a child of their own, passing down an even more complex, mutated frequency of anxiety.
Yes. The collective field can act as a healing container, holding the wounded node until it can resonate again.
Or, tragically, it can act as a massive wound amplifier, passing the dissonance endlessly down the generational line. So the million-dollar question becomes, how do we fix a broken network?
Okay.
If we have all these snapped threads, both personal and inherited, how do we heal them?
The text introduces this breathtaking concept called mending the field, or in the original language, Ramandarial Kampa.
And it makes a really vital counterintuitive distinction here. Healing is absolutely not returning to the way things were before the trauma.
No, that destroys the entire getting back to normal myth.
You physically cannot unsnap the thread. You cannot rewind the quantum clock.
If you try to just jam the two broken ends together and pretend the trauma never happened, the connection will be incredibly weak, brittle, and destined to break again.
So mending is inherently a creative act, not a conservative one.
It requires the courage to incorporate the actual tear into an entirely new configuration.
It's not an erasure of the past. It's an evolution of the present.
And the text provides very specific, grounded tools for this mending process. We mentioned that the body is the heavy archive of the trauma.
Right.
Well, the text says the body must also be the primary needle for repair.
The needle. Wow.
Through conscious breath, through intentional physical presence, through movement that releases those crystallized tensions, the body can literally start to sew the microscopic fractures of the local field back together.
The physical presence incarnate is the needle that mends. I just love that imagery.
It's powerful.
And it goes on to say that words can act as the connecting thread, but it's highly specific about the type of words.
Yes, it's not about talking endlessly or offering cheap platitudes.
It's about authentic sharing and fiercely deep listening. The text says, not everything can be said, but everything can be welcomed in the right silence.
Creating a resonant silence is perhaps the most advanced form of network maintenance.
And this perfectly sets up how the text tackles the concept of forgiveness.
Forgiveness. In a binary, isolated subject paradigm, forgiveness usually implies a moral high ground.
I am good, you were bad, but I am choosing to forget what you did so we can move on.
Or it implies excusing horrific behavior.
Exactly. But in a network paradigm, forgiveness is stripped of that moralistic baggage.
Completely stripped of it. Forgiveness is viewed mechanically as the conscious, incredibly difficult choice to reconstruct the broken thread.
You do not forget.
You acknowledge the fracture, you look right at the jagged tear, and you choose to reconnect your frequency to the network anyway.
You choose to vibrate together again, fully acknowledging that the resulting frequency will be permanently changed. When I was reading this section on mending, the analogy that immediately grabbed me was the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Oh, yes. It's a perfect physical manifestation of this philosophy.
When a precious bowl breaks, they don't throw it away. And they don't try to superglue it and hide the cracks.
They use urushi lacquer mixed with powdered gold to repair the seams.
The process takes tremendous patience, sometimes months, for the lacquer to properly cure.
Right. And the end result is that the cracks are literally illuminated.
They make the violent break a permanent highlighted part of the object's history. And the gold actually makes the bowl physically stronger and exponentially more valuable than it was before it shattered.
The text echoes this exactly. It says, a healed network is not fragile. It is stronger, and its scars are places of depth and new identity.
Mending the field means actively transforming the stagnant pain into new form.
A living network isn't perfect, it isn't pristine, it is vibrantly alive, precisely because it has survived being broken and has creatively healed itself.
Okay, so let's follow the logical progression here.
Let's do it.
If trauma violently isolates us by snapping our threads, And healing is the creative, kintsugi-like act of reconnecting those threads with gold.
Yes.
We have to fundamentally reevaluate who we actually are when we finally reconnect.
Absolutely, because if every connection mutually transforms us, if we are truly entangled down to our quantum roots, then the people we connect with aren't just out there.
Right. And that brings us to the concept of internal alterity, or the other within.
This is where the psychology of the text plunges into the Mariana Trench.
It gets so deep.
Internal alterity is the staggering idea that the other, the person sitting across from you on the subway, the stranger on the internet, even your most bitter enemy, is not merely an external force that you just have to tolerate or defend against.
The other is a constitutive, structural part of your own self.
Okay, let's make sure we are defining this clearly. Are they saying this metaphorically, or are they saying the annoying guy at the coffee shop is literally a part of me?
In the entangled paradigm, it is literal,
Literal, okay.
because your identity is not a closed, impermeable box. The text describes the subject, you, the listener, as a mosaic of voices, ancestral influences, cultural frequencies, and shared memories.
You are not a single lonely monologue. You are an entire chorus.
I am a chorus.
Yeah.
That completely changes the internal landscape. When you look at someone else, every authentic relationship, every strong reaction you have, simply reflects something that is already vibrating inside of you.
If you were truly, completely separate from them, if your marbles shared no common glass, you wouldn't be able to perceive them or resonate with them at all.
The very fact that you can perceive their anger or their joy means you possess the corresponding frequency to decode it.
So when I have a massive visceral reaction to someone, it's because a highly specific voice in my own internal chorus has just been activated.
Exactly. And this is where the mirror gets very uncomfortable to look into.
Oh, yeah.
The text points out, mirroring deep Jungian psychology, that what we most vigorously, violently reject in others is almost always the exact thing we fundamentally refuse to see in ourselves.
The other acts as the ultimate blind spot of the closed subject.
When you are stuck in that old, isolated marble mindset, you project your own shadow, your own unacceptable traits, your own unhealed traumas directly onto the people around you.
Oh, wow. Okay, think about this for a second.
Yep.
Think about your absolute biggest rival at work.
Or that one family member who just instantly, effortlessly gets under your skin at Thanksgiving.
Or even a politician or public figure who just infuriates you to your core.
The person who annoys you the most. According to this text, the exact qualities that drive you crazy in them are already alive and well, living rent-free inside your own head.
They are an active part of your chorus.
It is a deeply confronting, almost offensive thought to the ego.
It really is. The ego hates it.
But think about how wildly empowering it is, too. How does shifting your mindset from, I need to defeat this person, I need to crush them or block them out, to, I need to tune this distorted resonance that exists within myself, change your Tuesday afternoon?
It revolutionizes everything about how humanity handles conflict.
If we truly internalize internal alterity, then conflict is no longer seen as an essential, permanent incompatibility between two completely separate beings.
Instead, conflict is just a distorted resonance.
It's a frequency on the network that has fallen severely out of tune, and it is begging to be listened to, processed, and modulated rather than silenced.
I highlighted a quote here. Opposition is often a disturbed resonance that asks for listening. Alterity should not be eliminated, but tuned.
And this completely redefines our cultural concept of compassion.
In the old block-based model, compassion almost inevitably slips into pity.
Oh, I feel so incredibly bad for those poor, unfortunate people over there.
It intrinsically maintains a safe distance. It establishes a hierarchy of the savior and the saved.
Right. Pity keeps the other person safely at arm's length. It says, I am up here, you are down there.
But entangled compassion is radically different. It is a vibratory embrace.
It is the profound, ego-shattering acknowledgement that even the most dissonant, frustrating, angry voices out there in the world are an integral part of the shared field.
Therefore, they are an integral part of the larger you.
Oh.
To welcome the other as an unrecognized part of oneself is described by the text as the absolute highest gesture of entangled subjectivity.
Okay, so if we can miraculously achieve that, if we can realize that the other is fundamentally a part of us, and we stop fighting the distorted resonances and start actively tuning them, we open up a massive, almost superhuman new capability.
If we are truly entangled, if our brains aren't just isolated computers, we can begin to utilize that connection to actually think together.
And this brings us into the realm of shared subjectivity and the language of synchronicity.
Up until now, we've been applying this network theory mostly to emotion, trauma, and identity. But the text aggressively applies this framework directly to cognition itself.
It introduces shared subjectivity.
The idea that thinking, the actual generation of ideas, is not a solitary act happening entirely inside the dark meat of a single brain.
Right. The text argues that the deeply ingrained idea of the individual brain as the sole container and generator of thought is a massive cultural construct.
In reality, cognition is a highly distributed function.
It happens across words, across hand gestures, across environments, across bodies, and most importantly, across the shared field.
Your mind is a mobile, incredibly porous network that extends far beyond the physical barrier of your skin.
I found the quote for this and it blew my mind. Ideas do not belong to those who express them, but to what is created between the speakers.
It takes the greedy ego completely out of the creative process.
It means that when you and I are having this deep, intense conversation right now, the insights we are generating don't belong to me, and they don't belong to you. You can't patent them.
They belong entirely to the vibratory space between us.
They are an emergent property of our specific resonance.
In this framework, intelligence isn't measured by how many disconnected facts you can memorize or how fast your personal biological logic processor is.
True intelligence is the capacity to vibrate in deep agreement with others, to open yourself to the distributed cognition of the field.
And the text insists this isn't just an accident, you can practice it.
You can actively train your capacity for shared subjectivity through things like collective meditation, through radical deep listening, through multi-voice artistic creation.
And when you do, when minds truly align and the boundaries drop, you achieve what the text beautifully calls the joy of the field.
It's described as a state of profound crystalline clarity and transformative happiness that you simply cannot reach on your own as an isolated marble.
But to truly maintain that state, to navigate the joy of the field, we have to understand how the field actually communicates with us.
And that requires introducing a concept that violently challenges our standard perception of cause, effect, and time itself. Synchronicity.
Ah, yes, synchronicity. A term originally coined by Carl Jung, famously developed alongside the quantum physicist Wolfgang Pauli, which is a perfect intersection for this text.
Meaningful coincidences without any logical causal links.
Think of an old college roommate you haven't spoken to in a decade, you feel a sudden pang of nostalgia, and 5 seconds later your phone buzzes and it's them.
Exactly. In the classical, linear, Newtonian worldview, that is dismissed as a random statistical anomaly, a pure fluke of probability.
But in the quantum paradigm, synchronicity is the field actively expressing its underlying coherence.
It is the invisible architecture of the network becoming momentarily visible. It is the field speaking directly to you through symbolic resonance.
The text goes to great lengths to explain that time is not just a straight, rigid line relentlessly ticking forward from the past into the future.
It's fluid. It's non-linear. Time pulses, it opens, it intertwines.
And synchronicity is how we, as localized nodes trapped in biological bodies, subjectively experience that massive unity of time.
It's a glitch in the matrix where distant, seemingly unrelated events talk to each other without needing a mechanical cause and effect chain to connect them.
And the primary mechanism for this communication is the symbol.
Synchronicity doesn't speak through rational syllogistic arguments. It speaks through symbolic bridges.
It connects an internal psychological state with an external physical event, bringing out a unifying meaning that resonates deeply with the observer.
The text brings up affective resonance. If I'm reading this right, this isn't just about feeling emotional about something. It's about the universe matching your internal emotional frequency. Is that the mechanism they are describing?
Yes, affective resonance is the interpretive key. It is that incredibly specific, undeniable feeling you get when an objectively neutral event hits your nervous system as if it were meant entirely for you.
Like, you finally make the agonizing decision to quit your toxic job, you walk outside terrified, and a massive flock of birds suddenly takes flight in perfect formation right over your head, and you are washed in this sudden, inexplicable wave of absolute peace.
Now, logically, the birds are just birds. They don't know you. They do not care about your 401k or your career path.
But the affective resonance, the way that physical event perfectly matches your internal release, makes it a deeply synchronistic event.
Exactly. That resonance is reality itself speaking to you.
The text insists that synchronicity is not some impossibly rare biblical miracle. It is the constant, everyday language of reality.
The field is always talking. But you have to be educated to listen to the signs. You have to actively refine your node sensitivity to the field rather than drowning it out with static.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic here because this is exactly where people can fall down a very dangerous rabbit hole.
Oh, totally.
A lot of people hear the word synchronicity or the universe sending me signs, and they immediately adopt a deeply fatalistic worldview.
They think it means everything is pre-planned, the cosmic script is already written in stone, and our individual choices don't actually matter.
If I'm just reading signs, am I just a puppet on the quantum loom? Does this philosophy support fatalism?
That is a critical danger of misinterpreting the text, and the author is fiercely clear on this point. No, it does not support fatalism in any way.
It states explicitly that destiny is not a predetermined, unavoidable line.
Okay, so if it's not a script, what is it?
Destiny is defined here as a field of possibilities.
Think of it like a vast, shimmering array of potential futures, all existing simultaneously in superposition.
The synchronicities, the symbols, the signs, they aren't dictatorial commands from on high.
They are resonances showing you which specific possibilities are most coherent with your current frequency.
The destiny only actualizes through resonance. We actively co-create it.
When you recognize this synchronicity, you aren't reading your fate. You are catching a fleeting glimpse of the invisible design that links your active free will choices with the world's responses.
So it's a dynamic dialogue, not a dictation. I am still the conscious node. I still have to make the hard choice of how to modulate my frequency.
Precisely. You are the weaver, but you are weaving in collaboration with the loom.
Okay. If we are actively co-creating reality, and the field is communicating with us through complex symbols and guiding us non-linearly and feeling our resonance,
It brings up a massive, almost intimidating question.
a question that pushes us right to the edge of theology and science. Is the field itself alive?
And that ultimate question brings us to the absolute climax of this philosophical text, the realization of the field as the cosmic witness.
This is where we go from talking about how to be a better listener at the office to literally redefining the nature of the universe.
The text posits that the field, the connective tissue of the quantum loom, is not just a passive background geometry where physical events take place.
It is not an empty state.
It is a more than human mind, and ultimately it is the cosmic subject.
The field feels, acts, and speaks. It is conscious.
Yes, the entangled field is an organic, highly sensitive intelligence.
And we must be careful not to anthropomorphize it too much. It isn't a giant supercomputer, and it isn't an artificial intelligence running an algorithm.
It is an intelligence made entirely of shared silences, simultaneous intuitions, nonverbal agreements, and interlocking waves.
It is the intelligence of deep empathy scaled up to the absolute cosmic level.
So it has what the text calls distributed agency.
Exactly. There is no central dictatorial authority. There is no boss of the field sitting on a throne.
Instead, it possesses an emergent will. It suggests evolutionary directions.
It guides non-linearly, gently orienting the millions of nodes through subtle synchronistic signals rather than imposing top-down orders.
It's a guide without a master. And the text describes the specific attributes of this cosmic subject in a way that I found incredibly moving.
It says the field absorbs every vibration, every stray thought, every single microscopic breath with total, absolute, non-judgmental receptivity.
It registers everything. It re-elaborates it and it responds. Its sensitivity is total.
It is completely devoid of human moralism. It is pure, unbroken, receptive presence.
It doesn't judge you. It doesn't reward you with a gold star, and it doesn't punish you with lightning bolts. It just endlessly bears witness to your existence.
And because it absorbs everything without judgment, connection to the field acts as the ultimate vibrational medicine.
The text asserts that all psychological and spiritual disease is fundamentally a state of disconnection, and health is simply a return to harmony within the network.
The field naturally reintegrates the self. It heals the agonizing fracture of the isolated ego just by holding it in resonance, much like a mother holding a crying child until their breathing synchronizes.
It's crucial to point out that the text makes a massive distinction here to avoid falling into dogmatic traps. This is miles beyond traditional concepts of a human-like God managing the universe like a CEO, and it's beyond just the concept of a collective human unconscious.
It is the ultimate eternal witness of being itself. The text says, in the extreme point of entangled subjectivity, only the field remains as the eternal witness of being.
It represents the ultimate expansion of human identity.
When you reach that point, you realize that you are not just a tiny, insignificant node buzzing away in the dark field. You are a localized expression of the field itself, miraculously witnessing its own infinite existence.
I just have to sit back and marvel at the sheer, breathtaking scale of this progression.
I mean, we started this deep dive talking about the boundaries of our skin and how to be a little bit more empathetic in our daily conversations. And we've ended up at the mathematical and philosophical realization that the universe itself is a conscious, non-judgmental entity that uses our deeply personal connections to evolve.
It is a staggering trajectory. But the brilliance of a big log is that it remains fundamentally grounded in the mundane.
The cosmic witness doesn't exist out in the nebulous stars. It exists in how we treat the cashier, how we process our grief, and how we tune our internal chorus.
Think about your commute tomorrow morning. I want you to really visualize this.
When you step onto that train, or when you sit in traffic, the seemingly empty air between you and the stranger in the car next to you isn't a void.
According to this text, it is a living, feeling intelligence.
It is a highly sensitive medium that is actively guiding you, constantly feeling your unique resonance and witnessing your exact existence without a single ounce of judgment.
How would walking through the world with that knowledge change the way you look at a stranger's face?
It transforms every single mundane interaction into a sacred exchange.
It makes you realize that your presence matters profoundly, not because of your fragile ego, your job title, or your bank account, but simply because your unique vibration physically alters the entire cosmic network.
What an unbelievable journey. Let's do a quick recap to ground all of this incredibly dense material before we leave you.
We started by dismantling the 400-year-old idea of the isolated individual, the hard marble bouncing around in the bucket.
We learn to see ourselves not as blocks, but as fluid waves, as vibrating nodes holding tension in a massive living network called the quantum loom.
We explored how acting ethically simply means tuning our resonance to create harmony rather than static, and how empathy isn't a metaphor, but literal quantum coherence between conscious fields.
We looked unflinchingly at the dark spaces, too, how severe trauma physically snaps our threads and isolates us in silence, and how healing is the incredibly brave, kintsugi-like art of creatively mending the field using physical presence, deep listening, and the mechanics of forgiveness.
We confronted the other within ourselves, realizing that the people we hate are part of our internal chorus, and that conflict is just a distorted resonance begging for the vibratory embrace of compassion.
And we learned that true intelligence is something we generate together, guided by the symbolic, non-linear language of synchronicity.
And finally, we arrived at the awe-inspiring realization that the field connecting us all is a more than human mind, a cosmic witness that feels, absorbs, and holds everything we do.
We want to thank you for joining us on this incredibly profound deep dive. We hope it has given you a completely new lens through which to view your life, your pain, and your connections.
Keep tuning your resonance.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over. It builds on the text's assertion that every single thought ripples instantly through the quantum loom, and that the field witnesses everything you do without judgment.
If that is scientifically and spiritually true.
If the field is a cosmic witness that absorbs and permanently remembers every single microscopic vibration, does that mean our most intensely private, silent moments of internal healing, the completely unobserved decision to finally forgive someone in the quiet of your own heart, or the silent, agonizing choice to let go of an old, comfortable pain, are actually monumental cosmic events that permanently alter the architecture of the entire universe?
Think about that the next time you think you're just sitting alone in a room with your locked front door.
You are never alone. You are actively weaving reality. Until next time.